Today, we're talking about something I see all the time in my work with couples and something that almost nobody talks about honestly. So let me start with a story. A little while back, I had a couple come start working with me. And before I saw them together, I do what I tend to do, which is to see them each separately first, just to get a sense of where they are individually before we get into the room together. And here's what struck me. They'd never compared notes. They hadn't talked about this with each other, but both of them, independently, sitting in my office on different days, said almost the same thing. I don't really know who I am anymore. So today we're going to be uncovering what's going on that we sort of lose ourselves in our marriage and what we can do to feel that sense of identity again while also building a stronger connection that feels good to both of us. So grab a warm drink and let's dive in. Welcome to Relationship Reset, a podcast for high-achieving couples who've been together for over a decade and don't want to feel like roommates anymore. I'm Katie Russler, relationship strategist and couples counselor with almost 20 years of experience helping ambitious couples reconnect, strengthen communication, and turn their relationship into the best part of their success story. This podcast is about using practical tools and a lot of real talk to help you understand your patterns, stop feeling stuck and discouraged, and start working on your relationship in ways that actually fit your busy life. Because your relationship shouldn't be the cost of your success, it should be the best part of it. So let's dive in. So let me finish that story, okay? So first, when I met with the wife, I noticed that she'd spent the last 12 years building her career, raising her kids, keeping the house moving. She was competent at everything. We've talked about on here that hyper independence. And somewhere in all of the competence, she said that she just disappeared. She couldn't tell me what she'd like to do for fun. She couldn't tell me what she was excited about. She knew what everyone else in her family needed. She had no idea what she needed. Then I sat down with her partner, and honestly, I expected something different because we tend to assume it's the woman who loses herself in the long marriage, right? And when we hear all the things that the woman's doing, we're like, oh, wow, he's not doing much at all. I mean, we talk about this a lot. The mother who gives everything, the wife who shrinks. And yes, that is real. I'm not discounting it. Hello. I know how it feels at times. But what we don't talk about nearly enough is what's happening to him. He'd spent those same 12 years providing, showing up to a job that paid well but hadn't excited him in years, saying yes to things because that's what responsible husbands and fathers do, slowly setting aside the things that were his friendships, his hobbies, the version of himself that existed before the mortgage and the school schedules and the performance reviews. He'd made 100 small adjustments, each one totally reasonable on its own. But added up, he looked at me and said, I honestly don't know what I want anymore. I'm not even sure I know how to want something for myself. 2 people, 1 marriage, both of them lost. And here's the thing, they loved each other. This wasn't a marriage in crisis. This was a marriage on autopilot. And autopilot over time will quietly take both of you somewhere you didn't choose to go. So this story with this couple is not a rare case. It's something I see in some version almost every week. And the reason I wanted to share both of their experiences is because I think we've created this narrative that identity loss in marriage is a woman's issue. And it's not. It looks different for each partner. The way she loses herself often looks like overgiving, overfunctioning, being everything to everyone. The way he loses himself often looks quieter, more like a slow withdrawal, a steady handing over of his own desires and interests in the name of being a good provider, a stable partner, a responsible adult. But the result is the same. You both end up in this marriage feeling like strangers, not just to each other, but to yourselves. And that is a really disorienting place to be. I know this one personally too. Several years into my marriage, I realized I'd gotten really good at being a wife and a mom and a therapist. But when I actually sat with it, I had to ask myself, when did I last do something just because I wanted to? Not because it helped someone, not because it was productive, but just because it was mine. And that question took me longer to answer than I would have liked. So let's talk about what's actually going on and what to do about it. Let me give you a framework for this because I think naming it makes it less scary. Imagine your relationship as a Venn diagram. There's you, which is your identity, your values, your desires, the things that are uniquely yours. There's your partner, their identity, their world. And then there's the overlapping center section, the relationship itself. It's almost its own entity. It has its own personality, its own patterns, its own rhythms. A healthy relationship has all 3 sections. You have your individuality, your partner has theirs, and you share a meaningful center. And it's balanced. Identity drift is what happens when those sections get out of balance. Sometimes one person collapses so far into the center that their individual section almost disappears. Sometimes both people pull so far to their own edges that the overlap is barely there. Sometimes it's one partner expanding into the other space, not intentionally, but it happens. And when the balance is off, there's this low grade disorientation that sets in. You feel like you don't know yourself. You feel like you don't know your partner. And sometimes you start to wonder if maybe you never really did, which for the record is usually not true. It's drift. It's not a verdict. We often smooth ourselves out just to keep the peace. We stop saying certain things. We stop wanting certain things, at least out loud anyway. And over time, that trading adds up. Here's something I want to normalize because I think it surprises people. The very qualities that make you good at life, your drive, your efficiency, your ability to optimize and execute, those same qualities can work against you in a marriage if you're not careful. High achieving couples tend to run their relationships like a well managed project. Tasks get done, kids get shuffled, the house is clean, vacations get planned, and on the outside, it looks great. But inside the relationship, there's often this growing sense of, is this it? Is this all we are now? You stop being curious about each other, not because you don't care, but because you think you already know. You've been together for 10, 15, 20 years. You've got the data, right? You know how they take their coffee and what makes them annoyed and what their dad issues are. But people change. You change. And one of the loneliest feelings in a long marriage is to grow, to shift, to evolve, to want something different, and to feel like your partner is still relating to the version of you from 8 years ago. I love how Esther Perel puts this. She says that in long-term relationships, we often have to fall in love with multiple versions of the same person. The person you married is not the same person sitting across from you today. And the question isn't whether people change, because they do. The question is whether you're paying attention to who they're becoming. That goes for your own evolution too, by the way. Are you paying attention to what you're becoming? Or are you so busy managing everything that you've stopped noticing? Okay, here's where I'm going to push back a little on the instinct to jump straight to couples work when you feel this disconnection. Because here's what I found. When we feel disconnected in our marriage, the first thing we want to do is fix the marriage. We want to schedule more date nights, have better conversations, do all the exercises. And those things do matter. But if you've lost touch with yourself in the process of building this life together, you cannot offer your partner something you don't have. It's like that Venn diagram again. If your individual section is empty, if you don't know what you want, what energizes you, what you believe, what lights you up, you have nothing to bring to the overlap. You're just mirroring back whatever the relationship has become. I had a client, let's call her Marta, who came to me frustrated that she and her husband had lost their spark. But as we worked together, what became clear was that Marta had completely abandoned her own sense of self over 15 years of marriage and motherhood. She had become so good at being Marta, the wife and mom, that she had no idea what just Marta wanted anymore. We couldn't fix her marriage until she started reconnecting with herself first. And interestingly, as she did that work, as she started reclaiming parts of herself, her husband became more interested in her. She became more interesting to herself. That aliveness is contagious. This is what I mean when I say the reconnection with yourself is not selfish. It is the work. Once you start to reconnect with yourself, and I'm going to give you a concrete way to do this in a minute, the next step is turning toward each other with fresh eyes. The Gottmans teach us from their research that the couples who maintain what they call love maps, detailed, updated knowledge of each other's inner world, have significantly stronger, more resilient marriages. A love map isn't about knowing what your partner's favorite restaurant is. It's about knowing what they're worried about right now, what they're hoping for, what their big dream is that they haven't said out loud yet. And the thing is, that love map gets outdated. You have to keep updating it. You have to keep getting curious about who this person is becoming, not just who they were when you said, I do. The disharmony you're feeling right now, the strangeness, the distance, the I don't recognize us. In my experience, and honestly in the research, that disharmony is often the very thing that precedes a real deepening. If you let it open you up rather than shut you down. Okay, so let's get into the practical tips. The first one is I want you to start doing a personal tagline check, like today. This is something I use with clients, and honestly, it's deceptively simple. Ask yourself, if your life had a tagline right now, what would it be? Just whatever comes out. Is it work, work, work? Just keeping everyone alive? Running on empty? Getting by? Coffee keeps me going? Now ask, what would you want your tagline to be? What's the version that feels true to who you actually are or who you want to be? The gap between those two answers is really important information. It shows you where you've drifted, and even just naming it starts to close the gap. And I've worked with couples from all around the world, and sometimes the term tagline doesn't really fit. So think of like the bumper sticker of you. What does your t-shirt or your hat say on it? That's about how you're living your life right now. And how would you like it to look? Okay, tip number 2, ask your partner a question you don't already know the answer to. This week, sometime over coffee, on a walk, wherever feels natural, ask your partner something you genuinely don't know the answer to. Not how was your day, not about logistics, something real. What's something you've been thinking about lately that you haven't said out loud? Or is there anything you want that you're not sure how to ask for? Or even, is there a version of your life you sometimes imagine that you've never told me about? You might be surprised. People carry so much quietly. And the act of asking, genuinely asking, with no agenda, with no, ooh, this hurts when I hear you say this, is itself a form of intimacy. So I'll add that little note. When they share, if you're going to take it personally and get hurt by what they're going to open up with, then don't ask the question. But if you genuinely, curiously want to know their answer, and you can look at it from a detached place of like, wow, I'm learning more about my partner, this is a way to deepen your intimacy. Okay, the third tip. Identify one thing that is uniquely yours. What is one thing in your life that belongs just to you? Not your role as a partner or parent or professional. Something that is just about who you are. Maybe it's a creative outlet you've let slide. Maybe it's a friendship you've let fade. Maybe it's a dream you've shelved because it wasn't practical. Maybe it's something you haven't discovered yet. I'm not saying you need to overhaul your life. I'm saying identify one thing, just one, and make a small, concrete move toward it this week. Even 15 minutes counts. Because when you start to feed that part of yourself, everything else, including your marriage, gets nourished too. Okay, here's what I want you to take away from today. Not recognizing yourself or your marriage isn't a failure. It's feedback. It's information. It's your relationship telling you that it's ready to grow into something more honest and more alive than what you've been running on autopilot. The work starts with you, knowing yourself, reclaiming yourself, and then it moves into the relationship. That's the sequence, and it's worth doing. If you want support navigating this, and if you're ready to stop wondering and start actually shifting things, I'd really love to connect with you. You can book a free relationship game plan call through the link in the show notes. We'll look at what's happening in your marriage, what you want instead, and what the next right step might be for both of you. Okay, everyone, I'll see you next week. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. The effort you put into your relationship is one of the most important investments you'll ever make. How you communicate and grow together shapes your home, your leadership, and the example you set for the people around you. Relationship work is truly legacy work, and it quietly impacts more lives than we often realize. If this episode resonated, consider sharing it with someone you care about, a partner, a friend, or another couple who's building a full life and want their relationship to be the best part of it too. And if you're enjoying these conversations, make sure to follow or subscribe to Relationship Reset. Leaving a rating or review also helps this message reach more couples who are ready to grow with intention. I'll see you next week.